Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. Julian here for another waiver wire episode for week 10. That's right, guys. We're already into week 10 of the fantasy hockey season. It's passing by so quickly. I'm hoping that you guys have a winning record at this point, that you're doing well, that you're in a playoff spot, and that you're well on your way to winning your fantasy trophy. If you're not in a playoff spot, don't worry, there's still plenty of season left, so definitely tune into my videos. I'm going to do my absolute best to help you get into a playoff spot and win that trophy. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button, and consider going down below in the description and clicking that Patreon link and taking your support to the next level. There's plenty of perks like one-on-one DMing with me. It's only $3 Canadian a month or $2 USD per month, and you get to DM me as much as you want, ask me as many questions as you want for the lowest tier of Patreon, and it supports me a lot. So I definitely appreciate all of the Patreons that I currently have and all you guys that sign up in the future. All right, let's jump into it now and let's take a look at the schedule for week 10. On Monday, there are 4 games. Tuesday, 10. Wednesday, 5. Thursday, 8. Friday, 6. Saturday, 13. And Sunday, 5. Why are we looking at this? Because we're seeing which days have less games. And those days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. We call those off days or off nights. And those are days that you probably have room in your schedule to be adding players for, to actually play that player. And that's what we're really going to be focusing on this week. The teams with the best schedule are the Anaheim Ducks, the Buffalo Sabres, the Colorado Avalanche, and the New York Islanders. I like Anaheim, Buffalo, and New York's schedules a little bit more than Colorado's because their off nights are consecutive every second night, whereas Colorado gets Monday, Wednesday, and then you have to wait till Sunday. Now, there are 4 teams that don't have the best schedule this week, and those teams are Columbus, LA, Minnesota, and Montreal. They only play 2 games apiece. And Columbus and Minnesota particularly are bad because those 2 games are the 2 busiest nights of the week. So definitely not super ideal to have Columbus and Minnesota players. Obviously, don't be dropping good players just because they have a bad schedule, but definitely be aware of that. Let's jump into some forwards that you can consider adding for the week now. And the first guy on the list that I have is Brock Nelson. He's 70% rostered. He's been playing pretty well as of late, guys. So he's someone that if you're in a shallow, like 8-man league and he's available, I'd absolutely consider adding him for the 3 off nights that New York has this week. And if he plays well, definitely consider holding on to him too if you have room for a center going forward. Pavel Buchnevich of the St. Louis Blues has been fantastic ever since he turned around from his very poor start to the season. Someone that I absolutely love and definitely recommend adding in more leagues. Brian Russ as well has been a top tier player this year despite not getting top power play time in Pittsburgh. He's playing very well on that top line with Gensel and Crosby. He's definitely bounced back this year. Love to see it. Brian Russ is a great add. Drake Batherson seems to be bouncing back as well, playing on the second line with Tarasenko and Stützle, as well as the top power play. He's finally putting up the points, and you love to see it. Should be added in a lot more leagues now. Tomas Hertl's another guy who's absolutely on fire as of late, scoring lots of goals, lots of points. San Jose as a team is actually playing pretty well as of late. They're actually scoring a lot of goals. So as long as that hot streak continues, Tomas Hertl needs to be added in a lot more leagues. Dawson Mercer right now is centering the third line in New Jersey with Timo Meier as well as PP2 deployment. So definitely not amazing deployment, but definitely not terrible. And finally seems to have turned his season around. He's looking really good right now and definitely should be added in more leagues because we know how good Mercer can be at his best. Then we got JJ Peterka and Casey Middlestat of the Buffalo Sabres. Now, Casey Middlestat's actually still playing on the top line even though Tage Thompson has returned. Now, Casey Middlestat's actually stayed on the top line despite Tage Thompson returning, and Tage Thompson's also playing on the top line but on the right wing, which is interesting to see. But I'm not expecting that to stick too long. It's because Alex Tuch's also injured. So once Tuch gets back, I imagine Thompson moves back to center and Tuch takes that right wing position and Middlestat ends up centering the second line. Perhaps either that or Tuch might move down the lineup a little bit. But either way, Middlestat and Peterka are both playing pretty well right now. Peterka's getting second line deployment and both guys can definitely be added for a week that Buffalo has a pretty good schedule. Then Nick Schmaltz, someone that I'm loving right now. He's someone playing top line and top power play on the very hot Arizona Coyotes, along with Clayton Keller. It's a great deployment for him, and he's someone that is kind of a must-add right now while the Yotes are so hot. And then Anders Lee is heated up, playing top line with Horvat and Barzal, as well as top power play in New York. He's putting up points what looks like almost every single night. And on a week where the Islanders have a really good off-night schedule, Anders Lee is a pretty excellent add. Gustav Nyquist, I've included him here for the last couple of weeks as well. He's playing very well still on the top line with O'Reilly and Forsberg, as well as a top power play in Nashville. Definitely not a bad ad for your fantasy hockey team. Sam Bennett, someone who I've included here for quite a few weeks now, and people are finally starting to catch on here. Sam Bennett's playing very well, playing on the top power play as well as a line with Tkachuk and Verhaeghe. It's a great place for him to be, and I'm expecting him to explode very, very shortly. Jake Neighbors is still playing on the top line with Buchnevich and Robert Thomas, which is a great deployment for him, and as long as that line stays hot, Jake Neighbors is a good ad. He's also getting top power play time right now. Marco Rossi, someone who doesn't have a great schedule this week, unfortunately, because Minnesota only plays Thursday and Saturday, but he's playing on the top line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and since that new coach change, Rossi's looked pretty good. So definitely don't mind me some Marco Rossi. Next is my Manscaped must-add player of the video, Mikael Granlund. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code FANTASYTIP at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code word FANTASYTIP. Say ho 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 to a well-groomed mistletoe with Manscaped. Now why is Mikael Granlund my Manscaped must-add player of the video? Well, Granlund has been insanely hot on that top line in San Jose as well as the top power play, and we know how good Granlund could be in the past, right? He obviously was terrible with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he probably wasn't deployed properly in Pittsburgh, but when he's given really an opportunity like this where he's kind of the number one guy or at least number two guy over there in San Jose, he's really starting to show what he can do. He's probably fully healthy now, which definitely helps. And he's definitely doing a lot of damage. Go ahead and take a look at his game log. He's been otherworldly and definitely someone that you should be adding as long as he stays hot. Then we get Alexander Kerfoot, who's playing on the top power play right now on the very, very hot Arizona Coyotes, and he's also on a tear of a point streak right now. He's only playing on the third line, but that doesn't bother me because he's still doing really well with that deployment. And as long as he's hot, guys, definitely deserves to be added to your fantasy hockey team. He's still available in over 90% of leagues. Adam Henrique's another guy who I like for the off nights this week. Henrique is a super underrated guy. Gets top line deployment oftentimes because Carlson gets healthy scratched a lot because they want to, load management, whatever they want to call it. But Henrique's definitely someone who's super, super good and definitely an underrated player. Kyle Palmieri is playing on the second line with Nelson and Engvall and has been decent enough this year that if you're in a deep league and you need someone for the off nights, he's definitely not a bad streamer. And plus, if anybody gets injured, he's the first guy they move up to the top power play as well. Tyson Forrester is another guy who you absolutely need to be looking at right now, playing on the top line in Philadelphia right now, and he's been putting up the points. He looked really great towards the end of last season, and he was a rookie that I was very excited to see what he could do this year. He started off a little bit disappointing, but oh my god, has he picked it up. He's also getting top power play time right now, guys. This may be the time, if you're in a deep league, that you need to pick him up. Otherwise, somebody will, and you're going to regret it because the kid's full of talent. And finally, Robbie Fabry's getting on a line with Kopp and Perron, and he's playing really well right now. He came back from injury, and now he's looking really, really great. Honestly, as long as he stays this hot, guys, he's definitely a must-add. Also, skating power play 2 on Moritz Seider's power play doesn't hurt either. Let's take a look at defensemen now, and the number one option is Zach Werenski, despite Columbus only having 2 games this week. I like Werenski a lot, and there's a reason he's been added in a lot of leagues recently. Keandre Miller is another guy who's looked pretty good lately, finally seems to be bouncing back. His peripherals are not always super consistent, but he's been putting up some decent ones lately, and he's been putting up the points, which is important. Definitely don't mind adding Keandre Miller. Noah Hannafin's a guy, for some reason right now, who's on Calgary's top power play. As long as he stays there, and as long as he's putting up the points, I don't mind him as an ad. Jake Wallman's someone who's been kind of surprising all year. He's been putting up some pretty solid peripherals, and despite 0 power play time, has managed to put up some pretty decent numbers. Don't mind adding him, especially with Detroit playing as well as they are right now. Then Torrey Krug is the top power play guy in St. Louis. He's been decent enough this year that I don't hate adding him if you're in need of a defenseman that, could put up some points for you. Matthias Ekholm, someone who's also putting up points lately. He gets PP2 time only usually, but the peripherals are good enough, and Edmonton is a very, very offensive team, so Ekholm, with the amount of ice time that he gets, puts up points. I was very close to making Jared Spurgeon my Manscaped must-add player of the video, but I thought that would be a little bit cheap since I had him here the last couple weeks. I've been telling you guys to add him for a while now, and he's seemingly starting to break out now with the new coaching change and him being back on power play 1. He's putting up peripherals. He's putting up points. You need to be adding him now if you want a solid number 1 defenseman on a decent team. Alexander Romanov's a guy who can be adding for the off nights if you need a defenseman that plays on those nights. He's putting up some great peripherals with those hits and those blocks, and lately he's put up some points. I'm not telling you guys to necessarily expect points, but that would be a nice bonus if he does do that for you. Cam York's another guy you need to be looking at right now with Sanheim's lackluster play. Cam York got promoted back onto PP1. So far, he's looking pretty good. So definitely keep a close eye on him, because if he starts to break out, you need to be adding him before somebody else does. And finally, Josh Manson. He's been someone who's been very good as well with the peripherals and a few points. And honestly, he's got the off nights as well. So if you need defensemen on nights that are not super busy this week, and you're in a super deep league, you can do a lot worse than Josh Manson. As far as goalies go, John Gibson's a pretty good one, getting basically every start for Anaheim right now, which is awesome to see. Alex Lyon is getting, right now, every second start for Detroit, which is also great to see. And if he keeps playing the way he is, he's probably going to take over for Husso as that number 1 goalie in Detroit. As of right now, it's a timeshare, so Lyon is definitely someone a lot of you guys need to be keeping your eye on. Peter Kochetkov seems to be getting the majority of the starts in Carolina, which is great for him. Needs to be added in a few more leagues. Elvis Merzlikins playing very well, getting the vast majority of the starts for Columbus. Obviously, they only played 2 games this week, but he should get both starts, so definitely still pretty good to have Merzlikins this week. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or 6K as I like to call him, is the starter in Buffalo. Levi got called up because he got sick, but I imagine Levi's going to get sent back down now that, Pekka Luukkonen is no longer sick. So I imagine that he's going to continue being the starter there, or at the very least, split starts with Comrie. Either way, I think he's going to have a decent, next month or 2. Kirill Vejmelka. Funny enough, I'm including him here because Arizona plays 2 sets of back-to-backs this week. So as good as Ingram has been, he's not going to play the back-to-backs. Vejmelka's going to get a couple starts this week. And with Arizona playing as good as they have, I don't think it matters who's in nets for them. They're probably going to win anyway. Dan Vlader and Dustin Wolf. Now, these guys are probably going to split starts for Calgary now that Markstrom's injured. Now, he hurt his finger, and it seems pretty serious, so he's probably going to be out for a month or so. And during that month, you're going to have to look at Dan Vlader and Dustin Wolf. Now, Dustin Wolf is the most promising goalie prospect in the league, so I kind of favoritize adding him over Dan Vlader, but Dan Vlader hasn't been too bad either this season. So if you're scared, add both. If you just want to take a shot in the dark, add just Dustin Wolf. Anton Forsberg is a guy now for Ottawa who's won 2 games in a row, playing better than Korpisalo as of late. One of those 2 games was a shutout. If you need a starting goalie right now who's very low rostered percentage, take a shot at Anton Forsberg. Capo Kaukonen is another starting goalie who's playing a lot better than Mackenzie Blackwood as of late, starting at least every second game for San Jose. Another guy you could be throwing a dart at with San Jose playing much better as of late if you're in a deep league. And finally, Arvid Soderblom of the Chicago Blackhawks. If the pattern of starts keeps going back and forth from Soderblom to Mrazek, Soderblom should get 2 out of 3 Chicago starts this week. You could also make for a decent enough ad for this week if you're in dire need for some goalie help. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed the content today, drop a like and hit that subscribe button. Best of luck in your matchups this week, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.